Welcome to the podcast, where we teach you how to create marketing that pops. Get ready for refreshing conversations with industry experts, trendsetters, and creative minds that'll leave you bubbling with inspiration. Get ready to turn up the volume on your business. Let's get popping. Welcome back to Marketing That Pops. I'm Olivia and
Michelle.
And today we're going to be talking about iconic marketing campaigns. We recently had Ernest Tony on the pod, and he was kind of giving us some backstory on some iconic marketing campaigns that kind of always stuck with him. He talked to us about the Tootsie Roll Pops and just how, from a young kid, how that campaign just had such a big impact on him. And he had this really great story. So you guys, if you haven't listened to the episode already, make sure that you go and listen to that. And yeah, that was with Ernest from Bipocan. So yeah, check him out and go listen to that episode because it was a pretty good one. But today we're going to dive in just a little bit more to even more iconic marketing campaigns. So of course we have to start with our debunked myth. Michelle, what do you say to somebody who says going viral is the key to success?
I think that it's really difficult to go viral. So I think if that is going to be your measure of success, I think it's going to be really hard to meet that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think obviously it will be great if you were able to do that. But if you're a company that's coming to me saying, hey, like, I'm only going to be successful if, we go viral, that's going to be hard to meet.
Yeah. And the thing about going viral is, I mean, it's great. I mean, if you hit the lottery like that, that's amazing. But it doesn't always have that lasting effect that, a longer campaign has. Just like the Tootsie Roll Pop. I mean, I don't think that was, I mean, maybe that was viral to them back then, but it's still just, even now we're still talking about it, and we can all ask the question, how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? And that was their hook. That was their call to action, you know?
Right.
And so I think it's much better to have a lasting campaign rather than something that's just a moment in time.
Right. Yeah, because going viral is just within a week or so, you're right, or even maybe a month, but typically it's very fast. If you think about all of these viral like things on Instagram or TikTok, once somebody starts doing it, then all of a sudden everybody else is like, oh, this is hot right now. Let's do that. And then it's over with. And then it's like, what's the next one? And you really need to be the first one to come up with this great idea.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. For example, like, let's just even think about Nike. I mean, everybody knows their Just Do It campaign, but that's been just so long lasting over such a long period of time. And there's so many things that have gone into that campaign, and they've made campaigns on top of that. And so it really just helps to build your brand awareness and really your brand story when you figure out like what's your hook, line, and sinker for maybe a campaign that kind of shapes your brand, honestly.
Right. Yeah. And it's with Nike, it's like, what are their core values? Like, is that also tied into that campaign?
Mm-hmm.
And I always think of that movie. Is that What Women Want?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like she was working on this she was this marketing person and working on this campaign, and I can't remember the name of the guy. Anyway, what's that? You know?
I don't, but I'm gonna look it up. You keep going.
Cool. Yeah, and so basically, like, she could hear or no, was it he could hear her thoughts or no,
Yeah.
yeah, something like that. And so it
Mhm.
was kind of interesting how like you got to really think about like what are people thinking when they're doing the thing, right? And it was like it was about tennis shoes and it was about like what's happening to women like when they're have their shoes on and they're running. They are thinking of 10 million other things that they're supposed to be doing, right? Like,
Absolutely.
oh my God, like I got to remember to do this and I can't forget to do that. And oh, shoot, like I forgot to call my daycare and tell them this and da 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 da. And oh, and at work, I got to do this. And as you're like working out, running in your tennis shoes, you're thinking about, so you're just doing it. You just got to do it. Right. And that's
Mhm,
like how that kind of evolved and stuff. And so it's like, man, how can we do that for ourselves or for our clients? And
mhm,
thinking about the core values too of like Nike. I don't even know what their core values are, but I'm sure it's something like along that lines.
mhm. And the actor that you were thinking, that was Mel Gibson.
I knew it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So yeah, that was a great movie. I love that
I
movie.
know. If any movie were to, like, depict marketing, I feel like that's a good one to just really kinda just dive into, like, all the ins and outs that goes into it. Um,
Right.
that's a good one. Let's talk about a few more. I was thinking about Coca-Cola and just like all of the different campaigns that they have, but one that kind of stuck out to me was one that they had done in 2011. And it was when they had the Share a Coke campaign. And they had all those different Cokes with everybody's like names on it. And for one, I'm sure it drove sales because everybody wants to buy a Coke with their own name on it. But then you're buying one for your name, and then the kids got to get the ones with their names on it. So I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, they really use that personalized element to like get people to want to buy, and then also the idea of share a Coke for someone. And then they had some other names like your best friend or like your boss, and it kind of was like a cool way to just like, do something nice for someone and bring them a Coke.
Right. Yeah. And I remember when that was happening, and because my name is only spelled with one L, right?
Hmm.
And just like trying to find that one, like at the store that had, my name spelled correctly. But yeah, I think it was like have a Coke and a smile, right?
Hmm.
So it's like, hey, like when you buy our Coke, you share it with somebody, it's gonna make their day, it's gonna make them smile. So yeah, that was a really good one. I love that.
Hmm. Yeah, and it was like the personalization and creating a sense of community with like powerful marketing tools. Like it really help people to want to purchase. And I mean, I think that at the end of the day, I'm sure that that's what Coke's goal was.
Yeah.
And then also just like all the social media that kind of went around that. And I think this is a great example of just like how a simple idea can really just skyrocket you. All they had to do was change a label and that was it. And, you know, it was a
Yeah.
great campaign.
I mean, like thinking about the personalization, um, we're always like hearing about, when you're doing a campaign, it's going to convert better if you can personalize it. So thinking about like prospecting and
Mhm,
trying to get meetings with clients and things like that. They can tell the difference between like a email that you sent to like 500 people
mhm,
versus one. And it's like, oh, I know they went to this college, or I know that they attended this event, or they know this other person that I know, and trying to incorporate that when you are reaching out is going to be really helpful. And people are going to know that, oh, wow, she took the time to figure
mhm,
what I like or what I'm doing or where I went to school, things like that. So that's going to be like thinking about other marketing campaigns, no matter what you're doing,
mhm.
how can you personalize that and make that unique to that end prospect?
Hmm. I mean, I think anytime that you can add that like human aspect to something and just that personalization is just going to take you that much further because people want to feel special. They
Yeah.
want to feel like you care. And like you were saying, like anytime you can bring any of those elements of things that you remembered or conversations that you may have had, it kind of just brings truer and it just comes across more authentic. And that's what people really want. They, especially now, in this time and age and where we're at, just as a society, I think we just want authenticity as much as possible because we're like we've seen enough of the fake stuff. We want real,
Right. Yeah.
real people. Okay, so I love that one. Let's talk about Snickers. So in 2010, that's when they started the campaign "You're Not You When You're Hungry," and I know you remember those commercials. They were so popular. Just different crazy scenarios of people just acting crazy, and then you hand them a Snickers, and they're like, "Oh, I'm back to normal now. I was just hungry."
Yeah.
Oh, so I think it has like a really relatable aspect to this campaign. Obviously, focusing on humor and like maybe some pain points of eat this when here's how you solve your hanger problems is eating Snickers. Mm, I thought it was a great campaign and I don't know. I know that when I'm hungry or hangry, I should say, I definitely am not me.
I know. And I was just gonna say that I know I get hangry. And
Hmm.
I even have a sign in my house that says, "Beware," because if I am hangry, I am gonna like be grumpy. So
Hmm.
don't be messing with me and my food. When I gotta eat right now.
Yeah. I think it just confirms that relatability aspect of it. It's like, "Oh, yep, I know exactly what you're talking about." And I think that's kind of like the reason why I think a lot of people probably resonated with that is because of, you know, "Yep, that's me. I can totally see myself doing that. Maybe I should grab myself a Snickers on the way out." Especially, like, at the grocery store when you don't ever go to the grocery store hungry. Uh,
Yeah, I know that's a bad situation. Your bill is gonna be crazy high.
I know, I might be walking out with 12 Snickers, who knows?
Why do you think they put those at the by the
Mm.
checkout?
Oh, I know, they know what they're doing. And it seems like at Myers, our local grocery store, it just seems like the little, like, especially on the self-checkout lane, it just seems like that lane is getting longer and longer, and, like, the power of resistance is just harder and harder. It's okay, guys, like, you can't have every snack. This is just like a whole other aisle.
No kidding. I know. Like I went there this morning to grab some stuff and I'm like, holy cow, like this checkout lane is crazy with all
Mhm.
this stuff. It is basically another aisle.
Yeah, they know what they're doing. Michelle, do you remember when the Got Milk, campaign started?
Yes. Was that Cindy Crawford that was in that one?
There were so many
So
celebrities. I
many
mean,
celebrities. Yeah.
like, I just remember, I mean, for me, when I was talking to Ernest about this, and he was like, "Oh, which one is most memorable to you?" And I was like, "I think the Got Milk campaigns, just because, especially in the early 2000s, it was like they were in magazines and they had the commercials and they had billboard. I mean, like that whole campaign was everywhere. And I could always, my main thing was always, how did they get that milk mustache so perfect? Like I
Right.
never I mean, I obviously now, as an adult, I can understand that it probably wasn't milk. But at the time, I was like, "Man." And I didn't even like milk, so my it had me buying my parents buying me milk and trying to get these, milk mustaches.
Yeah. Yeah. They even have their own website. It's called gotmilk.com. And
Mhm.
they need some help. We should call them because they have pictures that are not showing up properly.
Oh god.
But, yeah, like, it's crazy, like, how that just connected with so many people, and not just like adults,
Yeah.
kids and like all people of all ages, basically. So
I
yeah.
The only thing for me with the Got Milk campaign, which obviously it's a memorable campaign, is I think I never obviously, I think it was to promote healthy, lifestyle and healthy habits and obviously drink milk. But beyond that, I feel like they almost missed an opportunity to kind of just even push it a little bit further, in my opinion, of like, let's tie this into like what you're supposed to do. Because, like, obviously, I think we just remember all the celebrities with like the milk mustaches and such. I feel like, this is one of those ones that maybe they could have push the envelope even more.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
If this was going on now, I mean, I could think of 1,000 ideas of different ways that, everybody show off your best milk mustache, you know?
Right. Yeah, especially on social.
Yeah.
Like you could have a contest of submit your got milk
Mhm.
photo um and make it like really fun like that.
I know. Not us coming up with these, campaigns for them already, like, "Got milk, you need to call us."
Like I don't know if you're gonna talk about this one, but usually whenever I bring something up, you're like, oh hey, yeah, I was gonna actually talk about that. But one that sticks out in my mind
Mhm.
is the Alka-Seltzer one. And it's
Oh.
like plop, plop, fizz, fizz. Oh, what a relief it is. And
Mhm.
it's basically that you're plopping in, the Alka-Seltzer,
Yeah.
and then it zzz, and so like who would think about Alka-Seltzers
I
like doing
know.
that, it's like because it's gross, but like sometimes you have to take it even though like if you don't feel good. But it's like how can you make that fun, right? And
Mhm.
they figured it out. And then also they have a jingle and it's just catchy and people are singing it. And I just remember like as I was younger growing up, that one. And then the other one that, and this is a stupid one too, but it's not like a really great campaign, but this stupid song sticks in my head. And
Which
it's
one?
the Empire Carpet one.
I was gonna bring it up.
I'm like, "Oh my god, like,
Mhm.
song drives me nuts." But and there's nothing really great about it,
I
but
know.
besides the jingle, and
Mhm.
it's like you totally, like, know the phone number, right? Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, those are
Yep.
the 2 that really stick out in my mind as I just remember, like, growing up, watching TV and those commercials always being on.
Do you remember the, Education Connection commercials? And it would be, like, this girl, and she'd be standing on, like, she was, like, on top of the website, and she'd be like, "Education Connection." Like
Yeah.
yeah. Those ones definitely stick in my mind too. Um, I have if I heard that song right now, I'm sure I could, like, remember all the words to it, but I don't know. Education Connection. I hope I unlocked a memory for someone just now.
That reminds me of the Schoolhouse Rock. Do you remember that?
Yeah, mhm,
Yeah. And I don't know if those are connected or not, but, it's probably around the same time frame.
mhm.
Or like Fat Albert. "Hey, hey, hey, Fat
Yeah.
Albert." It's like that was just kind of their, everybody starts saying that, and it's kind of like, who you're talking about when
Mhm.
you're, like, saying that, right?
Yeah. I was gonna ask you this, I was gonna get to it a little bit, but I'll ask you now. So, I was just thinking about, how it's changed so much just over the years of just, like, campaigns and just the way that we advertise, especially to children. Just thinking about when I was growing up, like, in the '90s and early 2000s, about how there was just so many, I mean, obviously commercials and jingles, like you're saying, and mascots. I mean, have you thought about, like, how all of these, like, cereal commercials and, like, brands used to have, I mean, it's not like they're gone or anything, but they had all these different mascots, and I don't think any of these Gen Z kids even know really who these mascots are and like just like how iconic they were.
Right. Like thinking, I mean, the cereal is a great one because,
Hmm.
we're in Michigan here and there's a lot
Yeah.
of manufacturers here. But like thinking about like the Bruce Jenner one,
Hmm.
like on the Wheaties, and like they always have people on them. And yeah, it's like that was such a major thing, like
Hmm.
growing up, that like what is the commercials and things like that. And
Yeah.
now we don't even have commercials because we're
Hmm.
watching Netflix and Hulu and all
Hmm.
that. And so like think about the money that they're saving,
Oh, I
on
know. Hmm.
advertising.
Hmm.
But I'm sure that's all going to a different marketing tactic, like
Hmm.
online or digital or
Yeah.
social, and things like that. So, yeah, they're just not in people's homes anymore, like
Yeah,
they used to be.
absolutely. Um, and two things that kind of go along with that. I was thinking about even like Tony the Tiger. I mean, like these kids, they don't know who they are. And I think that in some ways they're like these brands are kind of like abandoning their like kind of identity, or like they're kind of have to figure out different ways to build upon that or find different ways to grasp their audience. Just like how we've spoken about like Duolingo and how they have a mascot, but they're online, they're on social media. Whereas before we just had commercials and that was basically our checkpoint to hit our audience. But there was this movie that just came out, and I think it may have been on Netflix. I'll have to double check, but it was about Pop Tarts. And, like you said, we are in Michigan and they were in Battle Creek, Michigan, because that's where like Post and Kellogg's and is. And it was basically like a movie talking about the rivals of like who is going to be able to come up with like this Pop Tart or toaster strudel essentially first. And it was so funny because kind of like all of the mascots that we were talking about, like the cereal pop, crisp, snap, crackle, pop.
That's Crackle Pop. Yep.
So they were all in the movie, and it was pretty interesting. So if you haven't seen it, I'll leave a link to it in the podcast notes. But it was a pretty good movie.
Yeah, and it's like it's not a serious one. It's almost like a comedy.
Oh, did you see it?
Yeah, I saw it. And Melissa McCarthy was in it, right? Is that the same one?
Yep, yep. It's called Unfrosted.
Yes, yeah. And I just wanted to watch it just because, it's about like Michigan and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And um so yeah, it was kind of corny, but it was still kind of funny.
Yeah, it was. I usually don't like that kind of humor, but I found myself kind of cracking up at times. I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. I think was it Steve Carell was also,
Hmm.
yeah. That
Oh,
was one.
yeah. So obviously, we talked about a few. The only other one that I didn't talk to you about was M&M's, which their campaign started. This one started in 1954, and their campaign was "It melts in your mouth, not in your hands." So you know, kind of going off of the reasoning of you want a candy that's not going to obviously melt in your mouth. So they're hitting the hard points of what, or trigger points or pain points of what people probably are having with candy. But do you remember that campaign at all?
Yes. Yeah, I do. And I don't know if this was like later on that this happened, but when they started coming out with all the different colors, and then the colors meant certain
Mm,
things. And then
mm.
it's like, oh, I'm gonna give him this color M&M because that means
Oh.
he's gonna kiss me or something like that. And it was just kind of like crazy how all of those different things, how they can make it mean something when it really doesn't. It's like,
Mhm. we had talked about this, but you know, just like how we were saying, like it's just different now. And I was thinking about Oreos and how I feel like they've had to change their marketing style, and maybe that's why they spend so much marketing on coming up with these crazy flavor combinations all the time to stay in front of people, like when they're in the aisle, because we're not really seeing them any other time. So it's
Yeah.
like, oh, try this Sour Patch Oreo cookie.
Right, or the double stuffed or the chocolate dip double stuff, and
Mhm.
that's like, wow, it started out with just this, and now
Mhm.
all of a sudden they're being creative of
Mhm.
what else could we do? This is a deep fried one, or it's just like it's craziness.
Mhm. Another thing that I think that it resonates with our time period and where we're at is maybe these people aren't spending so much money, or brands aren't spending so much money on commercials and things like that, but they are spending money on influencer marketing. And that's just another way where, you know, like I said, we really, as a society, we want that human connection. And so when we have maybe a particular influencer or someone online that we enjoy or that we watch or we follow, that's how they're able to influence us to, you know, buy said products. So I know a lot of brands do a lot of influencer marketing and ads just because we're getting right in front of people, and we've already built this rapport with them, so of course we're going to listen to what they say.
Yes, it reminds me of all the weight loss commercials, right?
Mm.
So what's
Oh
really
yeah.
successful about them is, okay, I weighed this much, and here's a picture of me, the before.
Hmm.
But now I weigh this, and look at how
Hmm.
skinny I am, and how sexy I look, and all of this. And so, like, when people are like seeing that over and over and over, and like, oh my gosh, like
Hmm.
this must work. I'm
Hmm.
gonna do this because if that person can do it, I know I
Right.
can do it. And it's just, seeing somebody use a product,
Hmm.
and like it's that proof of, wow,
Yeah,
that
that
worked.
testimonial.
Okay, they did it. I'm gonna do it. You know,
Hmm.
Kim Kardashian wears this. Oh, look at how it makes her look.
Right.
I look like her if I wear that. And it's just some things are like way out there, but it just starts like I remember like 10 years ago when all those weight loss stories were happening. And I
Hmm.
think like, I think it was People Magazine did
Hmm.
like the Biggest Loser series.
Oh, yep.
And then, where these are the different like people that have lost like over 100 pounds and how they did it. And you could submit your story. I remember this because at the time we were working for a company. It's called Hackley Health Management, and they were a medically supervised weight loss program. And so that was what we were doing,
Yeah.
really like picking out like how by eating these foods you can lose this weight. And
Hmm.
we'd have customers like submit their stories and to be featured on their website and all of that. And then then they started like Jenny Craig and all them started
Oh
getting
yeah.
the star,
Celebrities. Yeah.
to do it. So
Yeah, I
because
was
if
just thinking.
Oprah can do it,
Right.
man.
Uh, if
Yeah.
Oprah could do it, surely I can.
Yes.
And I had honestly, I thought I was thinking about that, and the last person that I saw, or that I remember, I should say, that had done one of those ads was like DJ Khaled, and I was like, I literally forgot about Jenny Craig, and you know, here he is. And maybe he wasn't using Jenny Craig. He could have been using one of the other ones. But still, I was like, I completely forgot that this was such a big thing, especially in like the early 2000s. It was like anytime a celebrity gained weight, it was like, okay, they're about to start advertising this program.
Yes, for sure. And then like the infomercials too, like regarding if you ever were like up late at night watching TV, those infomercials would start. But
Hmm.
now, everything's different with Netflix and that. But um thinking about like skincare. This model uses this like lotion
Mhm.
and it keeps
Oh,
her skin
yeah.
firm, and she's now like 60 years old, but look at her. She looks like she's 30. And
Yeah.
so people would just be like, 1-800 da 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 da. I love that.
Sign
Yes,
me up.
she's ordered. It takes 6 weeks to get here, but yes, I did the 800 number on the infomercial. Now it's like we can get it in a day.
I know. Times have changed so much.
Yeah, they have.
Oh, man. So, obviously, all of these campaigns have been iconic and so memorable. But let's talk about what does it actually take to what is making these things be like lasting campaigns? I think we touched on it a little bit, but I think it mostly is about having that memorable idea and starting there rather than trying to figure out how am I going to have this viral moment. Like that shouldn't be where you're trying to start. Try to think about what your core image is. Try to figure out what you're trying, the problem that you're trying to solve, whatever pain point that maybe your service or product is going to solve or provide. So, um, yeah, the core message of the image needs to be something that resonates with the audience. Just like Nike, just do it, a slogan like that is obviously going to be iconic and memorable. The other thing that we've talked about is having an emotional connection. So something that's going to tap into people's hearts or make them laugh, anything like that, make them feel like inspired. Emotion. So when you create that emotional connection with a brand, you're going to choose them 10 times over any other brand because you remembered them and now you're connected. And so you're like, I know that this works, just like what you were saying about like the Jenny Craig. Oh, I've seen that this has worked for so many people time and time again. I know that at least I can try. If I know this person can do it, so can I.
Mhm. Yeah. I think it's about telling a story too,
Mhm.
because then people can relate to you. And I know we get that a lot. Like people will go to our website and say, it's so relatable. And I feel like I already know you and I haven't even met you because we make sure it's our employees that are on the website and we're not using
Mhm.
stock photography, and just the way we talk on our website is the way we normally talk, and like with the Just Do It, they were telling a story, right?
Right.
And that's why they were able to connect with people. And all of these campaigns that have been successful, they all told a story,
Mhm.
about their product. And it's not like rocket science. It's just how can we connect with our audience? What does our product do that's so cool? And how can we help you?
Yeah. Going off what Michelle said is knowing your ideal customer is crucial. So you can't, you're not going to get everybody, but you need to figure out what your core is. And then you can really fine tune that message, like Michelle was saying, and tailor it to those individuals. And then you're meeting the right media channels and you are having the campaign that directly speaks to their wants and needs. And that way you're having like more of that long lasting connection and impression, I guess I should say. And then consistency. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, now you got me all excited. We need to make a really cool campaign for Thrive Pop. How can we how can we come up with something?
I
Like,
know.
when we're in it, like, so much, like, you can't
Hmm.
see, right? And that's, I think, what so many of our clients got because they're like they're just so in the weeds that they can't, like, take a step back and go, okay, what does our product really do for people?
And that's what's important. I know we're having this conversation for our podcast, but it's important to take a step back and honestly look at others, look at what other campaigns, and maybe they have absolutely nothing to do with your business, but you can still learn from them. You can still try to figure out what are the reasons and what are the whys of why this campaign is so successful, and how can you relate that back to your business? And I think that's why we get so excited looking at, like, none of these have anything to do with each other, but they're some core things that they all are doing to be these memorable campaigns.
They're all very similar
Mm.
because they're telling about their product. They're doing it in a creative way that like people get
Mhm.
why that you should use it. And it's just, it they're all just so similar.
Mhm.
Wonder if they all use the same marketing.
Mhm. Well, and I think the thing about, especially like the Coke and like the M&Ms and the Snickers, like the thing that those all have in common to me is that it was low impact. There was not It's not a high cost for them to come up with this idea. They're not changing their product. They're not coming up with anything to make anything new. I mean, with the exception of maybe a new label or something like that. But they got to have that anyway, for their products. And it's like just that small change can make such a great and big impact on their overall bottom line.
Hmm.
So it doesn't always have to be, pouring millions into something. It can be a small idea that can take you further.
Right.
So the last thing I'd say is just consistency. Is making sure that, obviously, if you do have a campaign, continue on with your message. Make a campaign. Make sure that you're talking about these things multiple times. It takes multiple times for things to sink in, and I think that's why we remember all those jingles and we remember the songs because they were catchy. But it did take a couple times for us to be able to remember those phone numbers and those products and all of that. So you have to be consistent. Obviously, try not to overdo it. And you obviously have to find that right balance to staying visible, but avoid being annoying.
Right. Yeah, there's a difference between consistent and like annoying for sure.
So, how do you guys make lasting campaigns? We kind of told you, but I'm going to drill it down just a little bit further. Define your goals, figure out what those goals are, what you're trying to achieve. Obviously, you need to know your audience. You need to know who you're attaching those to. Brainstorm. Just take a second, just like we are. Think about the campaigns. Like, bring all your people into a room. Have everybody say, what's one memorable campaign that you always remember? And then break that down. Figure out what the reasons are that makes it memorable to you. And maybe other people might have different reasons of why it's memorable to them. And that can help you figure out a better overall campaign for your business. I'd say refine and focus. So don't overwhelm yourselves, don't overwhelm your audience. Try to have something that's simple, because when you start adding too much to it, then it gets convoluted. And then you're like, well, I got A, B, and C, and all these other things. Most campaigns that are long lasting, the ones that we talked about, they're simple. The messaging is simple, and that's why we remember it.
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean, you think about like all of these, they were only a few words, right?
mhm,
You know, like just do it or pop pop fizz fizz or whatever.
mhm.
It's just like how do you get your point across in the shortest amount of words so that it fits on everything, right? Your website, business card, everything.
Michelle said this: craft a compelling story. People connect with stories. Weave a narrative around your campaign that showcases the benefits of your products or services in a relatable way. Obviously, we all have emotions, so tap into those. I think that also helps with true, memorable campaigns. And obviously, we would be a fool to not tell you this, but you have to measure. uh,
Yeah,
how
most
can
importantly.
Yes. How can you figure out if your campaign is doing well? Well, you have to track, and you also have to adapt. So once you are collecting all of this information, try to figure out what you need to do with it. If it's working and it's going well, great. If it's not, let's try some things differently. Maybe we need to switch up the messaging. Figure out, is this too confusing for people to understand, why are people not clicking? Why are they not purchasing? Why are
Mhm.
they not converting? So just being willing to adapt and pivot.
Yes. And when you were saying that, I was thinking, hmm, I wonder if any of those campaigns started off
Oh
with
yeah.
something else, but
Mhm.
then evolved to
Mhm.
that because they noticed that something wasn't right, it wasn't connecting, so let's just change it to this and let's see what happens with that. And
Mhm.
that's really what marketing is it experimenting all the time, like trying, testing different ways to say things or to
Mhm.
communicate things and that connects with people.
Absolutely. Well, that's it. That's all I got. If you guys have any other campaigns or other ones that maybe we missed, and we'll probably do this again just because I think it's always interesting to talk about campaigns that are successful because we can learn so much from them. So if you guys have any ideas of other campaigns that maybe we didn't talk about, send them in, send them to us, and we will talk about them on maybe a next episode.
And if you'd like to be a guest on our show, we want to hear from you because we want to hear what other people that are so passionate about marketing, what are they doing and what have they had really good success with, because we're here to educate and teach everybody about the best practices and how they can get the best results possible.
Yeah. So you can email us at marketingthatpops@thrivepop.com. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to give us 5 stars, of course. And we'll check you guys on the next episode. Thanks for listening with us today. Stay tuned for the latest in web marketing and design from ThrivePop. Want to be a pop star? Head over to thrivepop.com/podcast to join our mailing list for episode notifications, sneak peeks, listener feedback, and more.